Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning back in. My name is Ted Martinez, and this is All Inclusive. My objective in this particular episode, it's not really an official episode, just a small clip I wanted to make to give you guys a little runaround of what goes on in my head, in my mind from time to time. In particular, an American timeline of history. And the reason I'm making this video jogging, guys, is so that you won't think I'm cheating on you. I'll never do that. This call coming from the top of my head. If you guys want to know or want me to delve in deeper to any one of these particular dates or facts I'm going to delve into, I'm not going to go too deep into the dates because I do want to save them for future episodes. So without further ado, let us begin. We got the lost colony of Roanoke. I think it's 1585. Then we followed up with the first permanent settlement. I think it was on May 14, 1607. And we'll follow that up with July 9, 1640, where we got John Punch, who's sentenced to slavery for life, which makes a big difference because he was with two indentured servants at the time when he escaped. And the two indentured servants got basically a slap on the wrist. And John Punch, of course, being black, got sentenced to life for slavery, in slavery. And that was the first time, marked the first time by law, a de facto law in practice, where a black man is sentenced in a different way to the whites. We'll skip over now to April 6, 1712, with the New York Slave Revolt, where 23 Africans led a slave revolt, were captured, 6 of them committed suicide, and 70 were captured just for good measure. 21 were found guilty, 20 were burned to death, and 1 was put on the Catherine wheel. So you know it's the torture wheel, the breaking wheel. And we'll follow that up now with April 19th, 1775, with the Battle of Concord, Lexington. July 4, 1776, of course, Declaration of Independence. On July 1777, we have Vermont abolishing slavery. Although, of course, civil rights wasn't a priority back then, especially when fighting for that. On the same month, July 1777, we've got John Jay, who tried to pass a law to free slaves in New York, but that failed abjectly. And so, November 15, 1775, we had the Articles of Confederation created, which were then ratified on March 1st, 1781. Of course, we had the Treaty of Paris, which was signed September 3rd, 1783. Let's skip forward now to January 25th, 1785, where we have the first meeting with the New York Manumission Society, just formed. John Jay is elected as its president, the society's president, and I think it was in the lower 20s. They were all elites, they were all white, but they were following a good movement, abolitionist. So we'll skip over now to May 25th, 1787, where the Constitutional Convention opens up in Philadelphia, overseen by George Washington. July 13, 1787, we have the Northwest Ordinance established. On September 17, 1787, the Constitution is finally born, it's created, and ready for ratification by the states. We'll skip a little over to November 2nd, 1787, where the New York Manumission Society founds the first African free school, Lower Manhattan. We'll go over now to June 21st, 1788, where New Hampshire, the ninth state, ratifies the Constitution. And in Article 7 of the Constitution, it states that once the ninth state does so, the Constitution becomes official tissue. On March 4, 1789, we have the first Congress established under the new Constitution. April 30th, 1789, George Washington is inaugurated as his first president. On May 5th of 1789, approximately 5 days after George Washington is inaugurated, the French Revolution begins. On June 8th of 1789, we got James Madison introducing the Bill of Rights in Congress. September 24th, 1789, where Congress establishes the Supreme Court. And on the very next day, September 25th, 1789, the Supreme Court approves of 12 of the 17 amendments ready for ratification as well. On December 15th of 1791, Virginia ratifies the Bill of Rights, 10 amendments, making it official Bill of Rights, the first 10. February 12, 1793, George Washington signs the Fugitive Slave Act. As we know, the Fugitive Slave Act enabled and ensured slave owners that when their slaves escaped, their property escaped, they would be able to go retrieve them at a free state, which is where they would escape to. And there would be no obstruction by the law to do so. April 22nd, 1793, George Washington proclaims neutrality in the war between France and Great Britain. From 1794 to 1796, the John Jay Treaty is signed and becomes effective, which promotes a lot of business with Great Britain, and of course breaches the contract of the Treaty of Alliance from 1778 that we made. And of course, since the king was killed in France, one could say it was not the same contract anymore. That's what we went with. On March 4th, 1797, John Adams becomes the second president of the United States. From 1798 to 1800 was the quasi-war between us and France. Small war. March 4th, 1801, Thomas Jefferson becomes the third president. On April 30th of 1803, he makes the Louisiana Purchase. On March 2nd, 1807, the Act of Prohibiting the Importation of Slaves Act. March 4th, 1809, James Madison becomes the fourth president of the United States. On June 18th, 1812, the War of 1812 begins, and it ends on February 17, 1815, with the Treaty of Ghent being signed in a safe location on December 24th of 1814. Skip over now. March 4th, 1817, James Monroe becomes the 5th president. On March 6, 1820, we have the Missouri Compromise, where Maine is added as a free state and Missouri as a slave state. And of course, slavery is banned under the line from east to west under Missouri, the 3630 parallel. On December 2nd, 1823, James Monroe signs the Monroe Doctrine, which prevents the further colonization in America. March 4th, 1825, we got John Quincy Adams inaugurated. On July 4th, 1827, on a very independent day, slavery is abolished in New York. And again, civil rights is not a thing yet. On May 19th, 1828, we got the Tariffs of Abominations, or the Tariffs of 1828. March 4th, 1829, we got Andrew Jackson inaugurated as 7th president. May 28th, 1830, he signs the Indian Removal Act, which of course leads to the Trail of Tears being one of the small segments in the atrocity signed by this man. On September 10, 1833, we have him declare that the government will no longer be using the Second National Bank of the United States. May 26, 1836, we've got Representative Democrat from South Carolina, Henry L. Pinckney, who made the Pinckney Resolutions, which was the gag rule, which basically said that anybody who spoke against slavery, who was an abolitionist, that bill or act or whatever was trying to be passed to be seen by Congress would be tabled. That was the term that they used. And I'll get back to its rescindance in just a bit. For now, I'll go to March 4th, 1837, where Martin Van Buren becomes the 8th president. And of course, his presidency is mired in May 10 of 1837, where the Panic of 1837 occurs, or the financial crash of 1837. We'll skip over now to March 4th, 1841. William Henry Harrison, the 9th president, is inaugurated. Of course, he has to be the one to give the longest inaugural speech and die just a month later. So, April 4th, 1841, John Tyler becomes president, the 10th president. He is expelled from his party for vetoing bills that he found unconstitutional. On December 3rd, 1844, the gag rule was rescinded thanks to the strong fight that John Quincy Adams put up in Congress. Not only did he write the rescindance, he also gathered the coalition necessary to rescind the bill. On March 4th, 1845, James Knox Polk becomes the 11th president. of course, pursuing the expansion to the west. The Mexican-American War starts on April 25th, 1846, and it lasts until February 3rd, 1848, with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo being signed February 2nd, 1848. And a few days before that, I think it was January 24th, 1848, a lot of gold coincidentally is found in California, which begins the gold rush, which lasted, I think, to 1855. And a lot of Chinese people came as a result of that. And I hope you guys look up the atrocities committed against them, because I don't think I'll be able to make it that far on the timeline. Anyway, on March 4th, 1849, we got Zachary Taylor inaugurated as the 12th president. And on January 29th, 1850, we got Henry Clay proposing the Compromise of 1850, which Zachary Taylor does not approve of. But it won't matter. On July 9th, 1850, Zachary Taylor passes from a stomach illness, and so Millard Fillmore takes his place. And so the Compromise of 1850 begins, which was a set of five bills. I might as well just go through them. California was added as a free state. We got the territories of New Mexico and Utah acquired. We got a portion of Texas, or a claim of Texas, that was satisfied by a payment of $10 million. We got the slave trade banned in Washington, D.C. And, of course, the enhancement of the Fugitive Slave Act. In 1851, the League of Gileadites is founded by John Brown, a militia group. And of course, John Brown was a radical abolitionist. So on March 4th, 1853, we got Franklin Pierce inaugurated as the 14th president. That was March 4th, 1853. Franklin Pierce is inaugurated as the 14th president. On March 20, 1854, where the Republican Party started. And on May 30th of 1854, Franklin Pierce signs the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which of course he quoted popular sovereignty to avoid making a decision, in my opinion, on what to do with the rivalry of whether Kansas was going to be a slave state or not. That move, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, started what is known as Bloody Kansas. We'll skip over now. May 21st, 1856 was the sacking of Lawrence in Kansas. May 22nd, 1856 was the caning of abolitionist senator from Massachusetts, a Republican, Charles Sumner. He was caned almost to death by a representative of South Carolina, a Democrat, pro-slavery man, Preston Brooks. From May 24th to May 25th, 1856, we got John Brown leading a raid in the Potawatomi massacre, where he kills 5 white pro-slavery men. And on August 30th of that same year, 1856, there's the Battle of Osawatomie, where one of his sons is killed, with the battle ensuing. March 4th, 1857, we got James Buchanan inaugurated as the 15th president. And on March 6, 1857, we had Dred Scott versus Sanford. On October 16th to October 18th, John Brown leads a raid on Harper's Ferry, trying to gather a coalition of slaves to revolt. That fails. He's captured, and two of three of his sons were killed, with the youngest surviving and escaping, who later fought for the Union in the Civil War. December 2nd of 1859, John Brown is hung to death, and John Wilkes Booth is there to witness it. November 6, 1860, we got Abraham Lincoln wins the election, and immediately 7 southern states secede. March 4th, 1861, Abraham Lincoln is inaugurated as our 16th president. On April 12th, 1861, we got the Battle of Fort Sumter, which begins the American Civil War. On September 22nd, 1862, the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation is announced by Abraham Lincoln and is signed on January 1st, 1863. Let's see, I'll give you guys one more year. A very important one, matter of fact. On January 31st of 1865, the 13th Amendment is passed by Congress and ready for ratification. April 9th, 1865, Ulysses S. Grant making Robert E. Lee surrender, ending the American Civil War. On December 6th of 1865, the 13th Amendment is ratified. And guys, I already been talking for a few minutes. I think I'm actually gonna get to jogging a little quicker, get my workout in. Again, my name is Ted Martinez, guys. Thanks for sticking by and tuning in. If you like what you heard, please, if any questions, or you want me to delve in deeper to any one of the dates or facts that I stated, please let me know down below. Subscribe, share. Thank you so much, guys.